9/11, 7/7, October 7th, Westminster Bridge, London Bridge, the Bataclan, Charlie Hebdo, Borough Market, Manchester, Madrid, Marseille. I could go on. And so we're forced to add Bondi Beach to the list of infamy. Another Western symbol savaged by Islamist hate. Let's stop pretending this is over. Let's stop pretending it's isolated. And let's stop pretending we don't know exactly what we're dealing with here. The terrible toll we've seen in recent days is a brutal reminder of a simple truth. The global threat from Islamist terrorism has not gone away. Far from it. It is spreading. In just one weekend, American soldiers were murdered in the Middle East by ISIS. Christians were targeted in the very heart of Europe. And Jews were slain and slaughtered in Australia. Different countries, the same ideology, the same hatred. On Friday, German police arrested 5 men, 3 Moroccans, a Syrian and an Egyptian, suspected of plotting another Christmas market massacre. In Syria, 3 Americans were killed and 3 wounded by an ISIS terrorist embedded in their country's security forces. And now, at least 15 people were murdered and dozens injured at a Hanukkah celebration on Bondi Beach. This is not a coincidence. This is not hysteria. This is a pattern. And here's the most chilling part. None of these places are really war zones. Bondi Beach is not Gaza. It's not Israel. It's not the Middle East. It's a place where people go to surf, to swim, to relax, to enjoy the summer. Yet the uncomfortable truth is this. The dispute between Israelis and Palestinians, between Jews and Arabs, is no longer a regional conflict. It's become a global psychological war. It's fought on campuses and in comment sections and on streets of cities that have nothing directly to do with the conflict. Why? Because this is a conflict that's stopped being about borders and become about a symbol, a totem, a moral litmus test. For some, Israel represents Western power, colonialism, military dominance. For others, it represents survival after the Holocaust and the most basic right of Jews to exist safely anywhere in the democracy surrounded by autocracies. And for many in the Muslim world, Palestine has become shorthand for humiliation and injustice, cynically weaponized by extremists who care far more about their hatred of Jews than they really give anything about Palestinian lives. And once a conflict becomes a symbol, it loses its borders. It's no longer just about land. It's about identity. And it's about grievance. It's about tribalism. And worst of all, it's about a growing belief that speech itself is dangerous unless everyone agrees with you. The Israel-Palestine conflict has become a global proxy war for moral superiority. Everybody is certain they're right. Everyone's outraged. And anyone who disagrees should be shouted down, cancelled, or branded evil, or worse, murdered. That's how you end up with people in London, Sydney, Paris, and New York behaving as if they're living in a war zone, hardening identities, choosing sides, and dehumanizing entire communities. Every bombing, every stabbing, every corpse, every destroyed building is instantly stripped of context, blasted across social media, and weaponized for outrage. Algorithms don't reward nuance. They reward anger. They reward certainty. And suddenly, people who have never set foot in the Middle East are speaking in absolutes. Good versus evil. Oppressor versus the oppressed. There's no room for historical complexity or inconvenient facts. Support Israel's right to exist? You're a genocidal monster. Support Palestinian rights? You're accused of backing terrorism. No debate. No nuance. No middle ground. And here's where it becomes truly dangerous. Jews everywhere are treated as if they are Israel. Muslims are treated as if they're Hamas. Individuals are blamed for crimes and decisions they had nothing to do with. But Bondi Beach exposes the lie at the heart of that thinking. Because the man who saved lives that day, well, he was a Muslim. Ahmed Al-Ahmed, a Sydney fruit shop owner, showed astonishing courage, tackling and disarming one of the attackers. He didn't hesitate. He didn't walk away. He didn't run away. He acted. That single act of bravery destroys all of the lazy, poisonous ideas that this is simply an us versus them story. It tells a deeper truth than 1,000 protests could ever manage to achieve. This is what happens when a conflict thousands of miles away is allowed to poison societies that once upon a time could live together peacefully. This is when synagogues need armed guards. This is why Muslim communities fear collective blame. This is when unstable, angry individuals feel licensed to turn global hatred into localized violence. And yet, astonishingly, the response from too many in authority is not to clamp down on violence, but to police our speech. That is a catastrophic mistake. Banning opinions just doesn't make them disappear. It drives them underground, where they harden and they radicalize and they eventually explode. You don't defeat bad ideas by silencing them. You defeat them by challenging them, exposing them, and destroying them in open argument. That instinct to censor rather than confront is exactly what extremists want. They thrive on our fear. They thrive on intimidation, on enforced conformity. And now we reach the hardest truth of all. One, Western democracies have been too cowardly to say out loud. We've welcomed unfettered immigration. We have celebrated diversity. We've said, bring your culture, your faith, your history. But too often, we have failed to insist on the one thing that actually holds our societies together: assimilation into shared civic values, pluralism, equality under law, and respect, most critically, for freedom of expression. You don't get to intimidate people in the streets. You do not get to harass Jewish students for Israel's actions. And you don't get to smear Muslims for crimes that they didn't commit. You don't get to shut down debate by screaming hate at every single person you disagree with. Free speech is not the problem. Free speech is the pressure valve. If we don't defend our right to argue openly, to criticize Israel, to condemn harass, to question governments, ideologies, and religions, all religions, then we guarantee only more resentment, more radicalization, and sadly, more violence. Because when conflicts go global, responsibility becomes personal. Morality becomes binary. The violence never stays contained. Bondi Beach must not become just another symbol in someone else's war. It should be a wake-up call. Defend free speech. Defend the assimilation into the West's democratic values. Reject that imported tribalism. And stop pretending that silencing people can make us safer in any way.